Hey, everybody. My topic today is for our workshop is positioning for victory. Um, it occurred to me that the definition of victory has could have many answers. Like, winning the Super Bowl. If you're on the right team, you could call that a victory. An election, you could call that a victory. But the Greek word is Nike, and it's usually defined to conquer or to overcome. You remember that Paul wrote to Timothy in 1 Timothy 1:18. He says, "Fight the good fight of faith. This charge I commit to you, son Timothy, according to the prophecies previously made concerning you, that by them you may wage the good warfare." Well, for number one, there is a war going on, and we're on the good side of that war. But when you think about it, when I was thinking about just that word positioning, when a person becomes a member of the armed services, for instance, you don't just step off the bus or the train or the plane and somebody hands you a rifle and a helmet and bam, you're off to war. There's this thing called basic training. In basic training, you learn how to be a soldier. You learn how to be a team. You learn how to respect authority. You learn how to follow orders and a lot of other good stuff. You've got to come to basic training in pretty good physical condition, or you're gonna be hating life. My father was a proud member of the United States Army in World War II. From Austin, Texas, he rode a troop train all the way to Miami Beach. And I think this is very interesting. The government at that time took over all of the resort hotels. And so my dad actually did his basic training in a luxury hotel, Miami Beach. And from there, he spent time in North Africa, in Italy, in Sicily. When I was a little boy, and he hadn't been that many years since he had actually got out of the military. And so my brother and I used to just kind of sit at his feet and say, tell us some war stories. Tell us how it was. And I remember one time he told me about digging a foxhole with a coffee cup. I said, "Dad, how did you do that?" He said, "Well, when the enemy is approaching, you hear the planes coming in, you'd be surprised what you could do with a coffee cup." So, a football player, you can't party all night the night before the Super Bowl, or you're going to be in too bad a shape to contribute very much to that game. And there's this word called temperance, and not a word you hear very often. It's an important word, but like temperance in what we eat and drink. Like a slice of apple pie is good. Eat the whole pie, not so good. I recently stopped in a deli close to where I live, and I bought some lunch meat, and I bought a pound of jalapeno cheese. And for those of you that know me, I put hot peppers and hot sauce on just about everything. And so I put that in my refrigerator, and a few days later, I thought, well, I'm going to make me a sandwich. And the entire pound of sliced cheese was gone. Now, there's only two of us in my house, and I did not get a single bite of the cheese. And most everybody knows me. I have a 17-year-old adopted son. And so I went to him. I said, "Isaiah, did you eat all that cheese?" He said, "Man, that cheese was really good." It's not good if you eat a whole pound of jalapeno cheese. In fact, Isaiah had some consequences. not from me, but from his physical body. uh, back to winning. Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls, and someday it won't mean anything. Maybe it doesn't mean a lot today, but it has to be finished. And this is what I'm going to zero in on this in the next few minutes. Remember, Paul said, "Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on eternal life, which you were also called." When I first started thinking about this teaching and this workshop and coming together, and I started I got to look up some examples of victory, and so I started looking, and I had just like a few days before watched a video of men and women who have attempted to climb Mount Everest, and I did some I would say minor research on about the people who attempted to do that. And when I started doing that research, I had to go back and start my notes over again, because what I found out I thought was very interesting. Over 300 people have died up and down Mount Everest. But listen to this. This surprised me. Maybe everybody here is already way ahead of me on this, but I found out that more people have died after they reach the summit and start to make their way down than have died going up to the top of a mountain. We have a little mountain here in Atlanta called Stone Mountain. It's less than 3 miles to the top. And my position a few years ago was to take youth groups, college groups, on a trek up to the top of the mountain. And I've climbed it over 100 times. And I started counting at one time, but I just quit. But every time, up the top of the mountain, we'd do a little chit chat, and man, some of the greatest thoughts and experiences of people came out after they've climbed that mountain, because it's the first third of it is there's 2/3 of the climb is doable by just about everybody, but that last third is really tough. So we would do a little chit chat at the top of the mountain, and ask people what they learned, what happened on that climb, and but at the top, I've always given the same speech as we were ready to finish what we were doing, head down the mountain. And I was always said, look, more people get hurt going down the mountain than coming up the mountain. And I say something like, gravity will take place. So you got to watch where you step. You got to watch, under your feet. Make sure if you hit a rock with a bunch of sand on it, you go around it or be very careful. And so this is what I propose. Reaching the top of the mountain is not victory. It's only victory when you get down successful. In other words, when you finish what you start. Success might be the most difficult thing in the world for a person to handle. Even spiritual success. Tough to be that person, that group that's just doing so well. And even if you become a successful pastor, that's still tough. In 1948, one of my personal heroes, Billy Graham. But in 1948, the enthusiasm started happening for him as an evangelist, and he was getting bigger and bigger crowds. And he was in Modesto, California, and they set a foundation for the way they ran the ministry from that place forward. So there was an afternoon, and he called Billy Graham called Cliff Barrows and George Beverly Shea and Grady Wilson, these guys that were the core group of his ministry. And they produced a document that featured 4 points. And how that this organization, fresh on the scene, would conduct itself in these 4 areas. And so I'm going to get back to that in just a little bit, but let me say this about those 4 document. This is what we're going to do. And they ran the ministry from that day forward all the way to the end. It became known as the Modesto Manifesto. And after that Modesto crusade in 1948, the Graham team focused on Los Angeles in 49, and they began to put that into place. The Los Angeles crusade is considered to be the turning point for the Billy Graham ministry, as it became not only nationwide, but worldwide organization. An estimated 26,000 people attended the Modesto crusade over 10 nights in 1948. The work by Billy Graham and the 3 associates helped create the guiding principles of Graham ministry. You won't find a historical sign in Modesto marking the creation of the manifesto, but there was all staying at a little hotel called the Rock Motel. After that, they started really promoting citywide ministry, and out of that crusade, a street ministry, a ministry that was geared to sometimes we say our most vulnerable neighbors. And all these years later, that organization, that ministry there is still going. Today, they serve 150,000 miles every year. They provide over 46, almost 5,000 beds for the homeless and the hurting to stay in. And so a ministry, one of the things that the crusade did is they gave a $5,000 like a gift to help get that ministry going. And all these years later, this is 2021, and it's still going, and still guided that ministry for as long as it existed. I want to tell you another Billy Graham illustration. In January of 2000, the leaders the city leaders in Charlotte, North Carolina, invited their favorite son, Billy Graham, to a luncheon in his honor. Billy Graham initially hesitated to accept the invitation because at that point he was struggling with Parkinson's disease. But the Charlotte leaders said, "We don't expect a major address. Just come and let us honor you today." And so he went. And after they said, the long introduction about him, which was not hard to do with him, how wonderful it was and how appreciative they was of having him there, Mr. Graham stepped to the rostrum. He looked at the crowd and he said, "I'm reminded today of Albert Einstein, the great physicist, who this month had been honored, or the month of that at that time, by Time magazine as the man of the century." And the story is told of Einstein, who was traveling from Princeton on a train when the conductor came down the aisle, punching the tickets, the old-fashioned train ride. When he came to Dr. Einstein, he's reached in his pocket, in his coat pocket, in his pants, in his little, whatever kind of a bag, if he carried it on, and he could not find his ticket. And the conductor said, "It's all right, Dr. Einstein, we know who you are. And so just don't worry about it. You're good." And so the conductor went on down the row, punching tickets. And they look back and Dr. Einstein's like down in the floor now. He's looking up under the seat. He's trying to find out what happened to my ticket. And so the conductor came back again. He said, "Don't worry about it. We know who you are, and just don't even worry about it at all. You're fine on this trip." And as he was ready to the next car, he turned around. Here he is again. He's like digging in the seat, trying to find. And the conductor rushes back, said, Dr. Einstein, don't worry. I know who you are. You're no problem. You don't need a ticket. I'm sure you bought one." Dr. Einstein looked at him and said, "Young man, I too know who I am. What I don't know is where I'm going." Having said that, Billy Graham continued, "See this suit that I'm wearing? It's a brand new suit. My children and my grandchildren are telling me I've got a little tacky in my old age. So I went out and I bought a new suit for this luncheon and for one more occasion. And you know what that occasion is?" He says, "This is the suit which I'll be buried in. But when you hear I'm dead, I don't want you to immediately remember the suit I'm wearing. I want you to remember this. I not only know who I am, I also know where I'm going." I was privileged to do some ministry at Angola prison a while back. And so a young man said, "Would it be okay for you to play? I could play the piano with you." I had a guitar. And the young man's name, I can't remember his first name, but he was a great nephew to a man that I know, and maybe you, if you don't know the name, you'll know some of the songs. Albert E. Brumley. He wrote "I'll Fly Away" and many others. But inside the Angola prison is a huge prison. They have their own cemetery. They have in fact, they have Dallas Theological Seminary. They've got a whole seminary going on there. There's also a church building that is right in the center of that prison, and it was donated by Franklin Graham. And they also have a shop, and they build. I think it sounds kind of funny, but they create beautiful caskets. Ruth Graham was buried in one of those caskets. And when I was there, it was a little bit of time. Dr. Graham was still living, but my friend who was a chaplain there at the time said to me, "When Billy Graham dies, we already have his casket built, and he'll be ready to go." Now, let me close out with this. The Modesto Manifesto, their 4 pillars of how they ran their ministry goes like this. Number 1, integrity, honesty to one another and to the people we serve. One of our core values at Safe House is everyone that you meet knows something that you don't know. And so we try to honor those folks. And integrity, oh my goodness, that's a foundation, not just for a ministry, not just for a church, but for all of us, to be truthful and honest in what we do. Number two, accountability. There was a little phrase that was going around a few years ago that said, people do, and it was in the context of some kind of a minister's thing I was at, said people do what you inspect and not what you accept. That's the way, and that's kind of the way it is. And I accept, I'm planning on you doing this, but we'll come back around and check it about. So accountability. We all need accountability to each other, to themselves, to the organization, to its finances. My friend, some of you know my friend, Gary Hines, we've been friends for a long time. Makes me feel really old when I think about how many years. But he reminded me of this recently when I was with him, and I had kind of forgotten about this, but I don't know if we'd been formally introduced or not, but for some reason we was in a big tent in one of those big Jesus festivals. We were sitting beside each other, and the speaker said, everybody needs somebody. If their life is in a wreck, if they make a big mistake, please have an accountability brother or sister that you can go to that have your best interests in mind. And Gary looked at me and says, Joe, I'm gonna be with you if you fall. I'm gonna take care of you. And I'm not gonna let that go. And I turned to him and said, same to you. We're gonna walk it out together. Accountability. Number three, purity. Purity in life, in heart, in relationships. This led to a promise in the Billy Graham Cruise team that they would never, a male member of that organization would never be in a room alone with a person of the opposite sex other than their spouse. I have a friend, a pastor friend over in Augusta, Georgia, and she has this habit of coming up to you and going, well, Joe, how's your heart? Not how you doing, how's your heart doing? And I walk away from there every time going, my goodness, this is the place, this is what has to be checked on a regular basis of how is my heart doing? And purity, number three. Now, number four, humility. A promise to honor each other, to engage in a local faith community. As the crusades of Billy Graham, they got bigger and bigger and bigger as the years went on. But how about this whole word, this thing, humility? When I didn't realize until I started teaching this that my whole sermon, this whole workshop seems to be about Billy Graham, but I guess that's all right. I have a funny little Graham story. My friend Al Palmquist went to a Billy Graham crusade back years ago and gave his heart to Christ. He was kind of a rascal of a guy. At that time, young kid, gave his heart to God. And he was a vice cop there in Minneapolis. And after that, he began to bodyguard Billy Graham on a number of occasions. And he told me this one day. He said, I got Billy Graham in my squad car. And we're driving through Minneapolis, and Dr. Graham looked over and says, Al, could you turn on the lights and the siren? And he says, sure. So he's flying down the highway, and he's got the siren on, he's got the lights going, and he looks over and he goes, and I got Billy Graham riding here with me. Humility. That's a promise to each other that we will be there in case you fall, or in case you stumble. We're going to try to catch you, not even let you fall. Here we are, we're back to Billy Graham. When I participated in the Billy Graham crusade in Tampa, Florida, a number of years ago, his front man, they would actually plan their crusades 2 years in advance. And this is how they portrayed his his ministry and his style of ministry. He would read his text and start giving the altar call. In the last few years, several well-known people in the entertainment business, in music, and now we got TikTok. And if anybody wants to explain that to me later, I'll be glad. But they have committed suicide, from actors, musicians, social influencers. Not only that, not a lot, but there have been several well-known ministers who have one day decided the world would be better without me, and have actually taken their own lives. And we're not talking about for little small mom and pop churches, I call them, but for mega churches. A pastor here in the Atlanta area, he'd been to Safe House many times. I've been in meetings with him a number of times. And then one day I heard, he took his own life. Two mega church pastors from California took their own life in the last few years. A well-known, successful pastor in Nashville took his life this year. Success is really difficult to handle. And that's why we need all these things. We need this accountability. We need this, we need people that will watch over us and take their, be in agreement with us into a place that they will be watching so they can help us that we don't fall. And here's my closing question for me and you. Did I serve the purpose that God had for my life? When I come to the end, as you get older and older, you think about, I'm not in fear of the afterlife, but you think about it a little bit more when you realize, hey, I'm getting on up there. And so back to whatever has happened to us in ministry in the last 50-something years, the most important thing is, did I serve the purpose that God had for me? And a closing scripture and a quick prayer. 1 Corinthians 9:25. And whoever competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should be disqualified. And I like the King James version of that. He says, lest I become a castaway. And that's what we don't want to happen. None of us, we don't need the spotlight on us. We don't need to have everybody know our name, but we do need to do what God has called us to do. Let me pray for you. God, thank you so much that you loved me so much that you went to the cross. You lived without sin, blameless, and you suffered for my well-being. You suffered for my healing. God, I pray that you'll just help each one of us, if we're not on track, to get on track with doing the best that we can do to fulfill what God has for us to do. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you, everybody. I love you.